Welcome, welcome. All right, welcome in. We are back for another quick conversation. We're not going to be here for long because I just fixed my very late lunch and supposed to be joining a prayer call right now. So we're going to be here for a good time and not a long time. As I was over there in the kitchen fixing my lunch, I was thinking through what I wanted to come on here and say, or what was needed to say rather today, because I want to ensure it's a value, but also that it's what you need to hear today. Okay. So if you're new here, I know I'm getting a lot of new followers every day from the work that we're doing. So I'm Kirsten Allen. I essentially work with entrepreneurs and experts to help them get into corporate spaces. Today's topic, we're going to talk about the types of corporate contracts and pros and cons. The reason I wanted to talk about this, or why this is so important, is because oftentimes when I see people talking about corporate contracts, I see a couple of different things, and I don't think the full scope of what type of opportunities are available to experts is really clearly painted, right? With government contracts, it's very simple. You see a lot of information about RFPs. I shouldn't say simple because it does take a process, but in terms of how to acquire the opportunities, people speak about RFPs when it comes to the government space, right? Now, when it comes to corporate, there are so many different ways in. And I think a lot of times most people feel like they don't know what steps to take in order to get inside of these organizations. And they don't even know the methods in which they could acquire a contract, because it's not just one simple way. So I have a couple of types that I'm going to share with you and weave in some pros and cons and some things to think about so that you can truly see the broadest scope of how you can get into this space. So not to be confusing or to go into many different spaces, but really just to get locked in on what exactly is the opportunity here and how you can seize it. Now, I just saw a fly in here and I know my food is over there uncovered. So I'm gonna keep looking. I may have to jump up and go make sure my food is covered up. So just heads up. Now, let's get into it because, like I said, this is going to be quick. So, the first type of contract, and to be clear, we're not going to talk about like workshops and keynotes, consulting, courses, like all of that stuff. The offer itself can be the same things that you're doing right now, right? Coaching, one-on-one, group. So the types of offers is really self-explanatory, because whatever it is that you're packaging up and doing now, like, you can just transfer it. What we're going to talk about today is the physical, like, types of opportunities that you can pursue, like RFPs. Like, okay, let's just go ahead and jump in before I list all of them. So the first one we're going to talk about is traditional RFPs. So I know we hear the words, but I don't know who's actually explaining the terminology. And so I want to actually break that down. So RFPs stand for request for proposal. You may also see RFQs, RFIs, which is our request for quotes, request for information. Most times you will see RFPs. These are opportunities that organizations, entities, schools put out RFPs. These are opportunities that the company or the organization has identified as a need. They've put budget towards it. They've had a couple of rounds of getting requests for quotes, likely, or requests for information. So they've done their research with the price points that they can expect for this type of work. And there's a team put together to develop and host the RFP process. Now, pros to this are, number one, it's a concrete standard process, right? Like I said, there's a team on the inside. They've gotten together and said, hey, we have a need for leadership coaching. We have 20 managers that we need to get coached. We want to see what organizations want to put together a proposal for us and decide who we're going to go with. Okay. So standard process, it's posted. Sometimes with these organizations, like I'm thinking about the Federal Bank of Atlanta, for example, they don't post their RFPs publicly. So you got to basically know the person in order to get those opportunities. But generally speaking, a lot of organizations will put those things out publicly, more so in the government space. But when it comes to the private sector, which is corporations that are privately held. So you're thinking all the companies that you possibly want to work with probably fall under the private sector. Those companies don't necessarily have to put those things out into a portal, like if you've heard of SAM.gov or other platforms, they don't have to do that. But they may have their own supplier diversity site or platform that they use in order to put those RFPs out so that companies can be able to respond. Another way is, like I mentioned with the Federal Bank of Atlanta, they may have individuals in supplier diversity or teams like that that have those opportunities and can send them out to those who they're connected to. So systemized process is one of the pros. Like it's this, they typically have the budget that's allotted for it, either in the RFP or it's a question that you can ask. Simple process, you know when you can ask questions, when the responses are due, when you can expect to hear back, right? Great. Now, some of the cons of this are, number one, with it being an opportunity that they're putting out and trying to get multiple responses, the goal of an RFP is to get what is called the lowest price and best qualified. So meaning, very straight to the point, who has the lowest price and who can actually have the scale and the capacity to perform the work well. So these RFPs have to be competitive, meaning not only do you have to be the best person, going back to the best price, lowest price, best qualified, you also need to be priced at a level that attracts the organization, that basically when they do the scoring, puts you in the running to get the opportunity. Okay, I'm trying to make sure I don't explain this and get too nerded out on y'all. But with that being said, your price has to be at a certain level. So you're not going to charge your top premium price for an RFP, generally speaking, because you're trying to win. It doesn't mean you have to be the lowest price across the board. That's why it's 2 levels, lowest price, but you also have to be the best qualified. And I actually think it's in reverse, best qualified, lowest price. So the first thing is, do you meet all the requirements? And then out of all the people who meet the requirements, who has the lowest price? So again, you're not going to go with your top level, because even if you are the best qualified, if there's someone else that's undercutting even 25%, 10%, they're going to have to go with them, because again, this is a process that they use a scoring system for, and they have to make sure that they are evaluating and awarding contracts in a way that is fair. Otherwise, there could be some ramifications for that. So that's something to think about as a business owner. How much you're going to have to do some pricing research, and how much do I really want to make sure that my margins are good? Because typically with these opportunities being larger, there's going to be some additional support that you're going to need, right? If you're doing a coaching contract and there are 20 different managers that you have to coach, you're probably not going to want to do that on your own. You might want to bring in some others, and 20 is on the low end. It could be 50 managers. It could be 100 managers. You're not going to take that on as a solo coach, right? As a solo expert, as a solo trainer. You're going to want to bring someone else in. So then again, those margins have to make sense without putting yourself in the hole. Okay. So with that RFP piece, the other part of it is, typically they're looking for larger opportunities. So I kind of talked about that a moment ago when I mentioned, teams and stuff like that. When I see these opportunities, like, they are looking for the whole end-to-end process. So they're not going to, an RFP is not going to be to do, it depends on the size, of course, the scope of work and also the size of the contract. But typically I've seen six-figure, multi-six-figure contracts. They want the whole end to end, not just you talking about emotional intelligence. They want strategic planning. They want team building. They want communication. They want strength finders. They want the whole thing. They want to be able to bring in a leadership development company to provide training in a full scope. Now, again, pros to that is, yes, this is a large opportunity. You have it on the books. These things can oftentimes be multi-year opportunities, but now you're going to have to figure out, do you have the scale to be able to perform that type of contract? This is where teaming comes in. This is where making sure that you have your network together. These are the type of things that we talk about inside of my program, because we literally build a network in which, when we go after these opportunities, we have 4 or 5 people who have different layers of expertise in certain areas, and that teaming becomes a lot simpler. But if you're thinking about going in this route, especially doing government, you want to increase your capacity. Okay. So that's RFPs. That's long winded and that's really kind of like scratching the surface. But the main things to keep in mind is that you're going to be facing some competition. Doesn't mean you can't win them, right? People win RFPs all the time. So, not saying that at all, just something to consider. There's going to be multiple people going after it. Actually, right now, what was I about to say? Right now, we are in a contract where they probably got a lot more responses than they thought they were going to get. So we're probably like weeks beyond the deadline in which they were supposed to get back to us. And so that's just something to consider with certain topics like leadership development, training, and coaching, depending on the company, depending on the organization. There's going to be a high volume of responses. So it's going to be paying attention to detail, because if you miss one part in the RFP, you're already out. Like you're not even going to be considered best qualified if you can't even follow the directions. So being very detail oriented is something that you're going to want to keep in mind if you're going the RFP route, and ensuring that you have, again, that team, and also that you have some financial acumen or guidance to ensure that as you are putting together your price points, it makes sense for you to do this without putting yourself in the hole. Okay. So that's RFPs. I like them. I enjoy them. I go after them. I help clients do that. But that's not the only way to get contracts. Come on, somebody. That's not the only way to get contracts. You don't have to wait for an organization to post a opportunity. Most times in the private sector, that's not how contracts happen. So I want you all to keep that in mind as well. I think I've been seeing, a couple of different types of conversations. And I think it's important to keep in mind that in the private sector, where you're going to get the most traction is building relationships and carving out your own opportunities. So the next one that I want to talk to you about in terms of type of contracts is going to be contracts that you actually go and pitch and position yourself. So these are opportunities that you have sourced on your own. This is not RFPs. This is not structured opportunities. This is literally based upon relationships and you actually creating the contract yourself. So we're going to call these initiated contracts. Let's call them that. So with these, this is what I like to do with my clients the most, because number one, these opportunities are not necessarily that fly is over here in the blinds. That's good though, because it means not my food. Anyway, these opportunities, I like them because you get to design them and co-create them with the organization. And so while yes, they could look at other people to provide it, highly unlikely if they've had a conversation with you and they built a relationship with you. So with these opportunities, this is following the system of building those relationships, networking, asking the questions of what's going on in your department, in your organization. What are you planning? What are your priorities? What are the strategic initiatives that the organization is working on? This is your discovery to close system. Now, pros to being able to do this. Number one, you can create opportunities at any time. You don't have to wait for a RFP. You don't have to wait for an opportunity that is posted. You can literally have a conversation with someone today, see that there is a need, create something on the spot, and decide to move it forward that way. Depending upon, I don't want to make it seem like it's just today, tomorrow type thing, but move the opportunity forward that day. Have that discovery call, have that conversation, begin the proposal process, all of that. But the important piece of it is going back to my point that I mentioned earlier, you're the only one in the running. Like I said, sometimes there may be other people they might want to run it by, or they may have other relationships with organizations that are currently providing a similar service. So there's that. But the competition of 30, 40, 50 people trying to respond to an RFP likely does not exist in the opportunity that you initiated. The pool becomes much smaller. These are when you can literally go from organization, from department to department, and continue to penetrate inside these organizations, really leveraging the network and the relationships that you're building in the organization to sell for you more than putting together a strong proposal. So with that being said, in these opportunities, I went into cons, right? Okay. No, still in pros. So creating those opportunities, number one. And then the second thing is your pricing. So again, you're not looking to be the lowest price person, right? Of course, Every company is looking at the ROI. Every company wants to bring someone in that's actually going to drive real results for the organization, which is obvious with anything that you're selling and providing. So there is a expected amount, but typically it's much higher than what would be in a RFP situation, right? Organizations would be looking to and expecting, especially the way that you position yourself and you position your company, to pay a certain price in order to get the services that they're looking for, especially if you can really talk through that ROI that they're going to receive, right? So, and I see your comments, so Yolanda, can you talk about starting new relationships? Yes, I can. That's a great question. So with those, I lost my train of thought. That was my mistake doing that. You can have those relationships going, and through that create those opportunities within different departments and do all those things. So we were talking through the pros of being able to create these opportunities for yourself. Pricing, that's where I was. So you can be able to price yourself in a good, have a healthy margin with these opportunities because you're not looking at being the lowest. Okay, so let's talk about some of the cons. Cons are you have to craft the process, and this actually goes good to Yolanda's question in the chat. You have to have a process and a system. So there is no black and white, submit this by this date, here's how much it is, all of that. You have to have a system that you use to drive opportunities forward, and you have to be the leader of that system. So if you don't have that, or you're not able to get the knowledge to acquire that, this may not be a good system for you to use in the beginning of your journey if you're not comfortable with having conversations. However, let's talk about that so you can use some of these key things that I do when I work with people in order to start getting that confidence going and learning what your particular value add to an organization is and how you can position that into something that they would be willing to purchase. So the system or process and building relationships, especially when you don't have those connections anyway. Well, before we even go into that, I want to let you know that you do have some connections. Typically, when I work with people, I'm like, when we're talking about relationships, let's look at our first and second layer of our network, because there's likely someone who's connected to an organization, to a university, to a nonprofit, to a school system, right? Somebody. And if you start with your warm network, you could really fast track this process, because then you'll be at a space where they already have that know, like, and trust with you. All you need to do is have the clarity on exactly what you're asking for. They can make the introduction for you. The barriers to entry become lower because there is no skepticism about who is this and what can they do. Companies, just like individuals, don't want to spend money that does not generate something. And so if they cannot trust that, it's going to be harder to move an opportunity quickly. Relationships compound that time. Even if it's, I don't know the direct decision maker, but I know somebody who can at least make an introduction, and that will greatly help to increase that likelihood of landing the opportunity. Now, that doesn't mean to say if you don't know anybody that you're all is lost, right? I'm queen of doing cold outreach. That's how I closed my sales in my corporate career. And so I don't mind picking up the phone, meeting somebody new, having a conversation, and seeing if there was an opportunity where I can serve them, right? So the relationship piece when it comes to cold or new people, it really boils down to this. You want to put on the mindset, first of all, of being a value-added partner. Companies do not want to get these outreach messages that are simply a pitch and somebody trying to sell something. And when I say that, I say it in the language that we mostly hear of trying to sell being pushy. Selling is not in itself a pushy tactic. Doing outreach or cold outreach is not a pushy tactic in itself. It's the way in which you approach it, which that's why I started with the mind and what hat you need to put on, of thinking of yourself as this partnership, this value added partner to these organizations. That's going to go a longer way in your communication, in your emails, and when you show up on the calls with them, or when you even make a cold call, because those things all still work. Relationship. So start through that lens first. And when you do outreach to someone, or when you connect with someone, it's so important to ensure that you find a commonality. You have done some research. You understand how this organization has the need that you can serve, and that they are the person to speak to about it. I think those are kind of like the two key things that a lot of people miss, and what I hear when I talk to corporate decision makers. And it seems so simple, but I'm telling you, when I'm in these rooms, The main thing that corporations are saying when it comes to working with small business vendors or contractors is that most people do not do their research. So if you're building a relationship with somebody, just think about this. If I'm building a relationship with you, or you meet somebody new and you want to start budding a relationship, don't people feel better when it feels like you know something about them? Oh, hey, I saw you had a son going to school. Oh, and not this like surface level trying to fake a relationship, but is there something that you could find out about the organization that's actually relevant to the conversation? So don't go in talking about a son if you ain't, that doesn't have anything to do with it. I gave that example if you were building a personal relationship. But what about their work? What about their organization can you pull from to give you a signal that this is a good time to have a conversation with them and that I could actually be a partner to them? Hey, John, I usually connect with people on LinkedIn. So that's a good way to start building relationships with folks that you don't know as well. Most people are receptive to that. So, hey, John, I noticed on LinkedIn that you just got a new role in leadership development. I'd love to be able to chat with you and learn more about some of the programming and initiatives that you're working on. Would you be open to that? That is so small, but many people would jump in with a whole entire pitch about what they do, where they do it, how they do it, all these things. And John is like, okay, miss me with that. But the fact that you actually even took one piece of information, connected it to what he does, so created a bridge of connection between you and him, that opens the door for a true relationship for someone that you don't know. I don't want to beat this into a dead horse too much, but I have to make sure that you understand it because it's so slight. We think that, a cold outreach message needs to look like a pitch. And I do not advise that at all. I do not advise that whatsoever. Your first message is not a pitch of your services or your products. It is an invitation to have a conversation. And that is how you spark a relationship from cold outreach. How can you have 2 to 3 connection points that create a bridge between you and the person versus a pillar where you're up here and this is what I do and da 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 da, and here's how I'm going to help you do it. That never works. The second thing is be consistent. So most times another piece that I see is that people will send one email and, oh, they didn't respond, or, oh, they might have said, no, thank you. That's great. If they responded and said no, amazing. We can be able to move on. Or if they didn't respond, we have to understand that these corporations, these leaders are very busy. Their role is not to respond to us and award us a contract. They have many other different things going on. So having the patience, but also being able to create a follow-up that creates a sense of understanding that, hey, I just want to pop this back up into your inbox and not in that particular language in any way. That's just an example. Did you happen to see X, Y, and Z, some relevant thing, an article, a resource, something that relates to them in that follow-up? Again, adding value opens up the door for them to want to reciprocate that and respond, right? So with those follow-ups, give it a day or two in between. Don't hit them up every single day. Don't get, I've heard this one time too, and I was shocked that some corporate decision makers encounter people who are very entitled, we'll say, and borderline aggressive with the follow-up. That's the best way that I can put it. So acting as if you're entitled to their time, as if you're entitled to a response, as if they are, on your time clock, that's definitely not going to work for a cold relationship at all. That's not going to work for any relationship, quite honestly. And that's not what they want to see. They want to see someone who, of course, yes, continue to stay top of mind, continue to keep in touch, but do it in a way that makes sense, right? If we were neighbors, I wouldn't knock on your door every single day trying to get you to open up the door. Like that would make no sense. So a part of it is common sense. A part of it is emotional intelligence and doing things that, of course, bridge that gap together and also creates a space that's not in lack and that's not in desperation, because that is going to repel them from wanting to respond and have a conversation with you. It seems like you're too needy. So that was a long answer to talking about starting new relationships from cold, but just to kind of cycle that back and put it into simple steps. Number one, create an understanding between, or create a bridge between you and that other person. That takes doing research. That takes slowing down a little bit, getting out of your head as being a salesperson and putting on the hat of a strategic partner and thinking, how can I position myself as a value add to this person? Not how can I get the sale, but how can I become someone who they would want to call on to get advice, to put on a training, to host a retreat, or whatever the case may be? How can I position myself as a value add and a resource to them versus someone who's looking to drain something away? The second thing, or the third piece, is going to be that consistency, but doing it in a way that makes sense. Be a human being. Be a person that's looking for connection and not desperation. Be a person that's looking to add value and not to drain from them. How can you continue to stay top of mind, whether that is, putting 2 days in between, maybe putting a week in between, right? With some cases. I'll give you an example, and I haven't seen that fly in a bit, so I hope it's not on my food. But if you missed the beginning, I said I fixed my lunch and then I happened to see they didn't let it fly in the house. But as you are, the example. So I have an opportunity for an organization that reached out to me from LinkedIn. So another good thing that you also can think about with this is leveraging your LinkedIn to bring opportunities to you, where you cut down again on some of that know, like, and trust, because they've already developed an understanding from your profile of what type of things that you do, what your brand is, all of those things. So now they're coming to you for those opportunities again, where you are initiating and creating what that opportunity looks like. So she reached out to me. We've been in contact for, I want to say maybe since March. And what are we in June? We've been in touch since then. So from the very beginning, this was an opportunity that was going to be in Q4, right? So it was no rush to continue to reach out to her every single day and what's this and what's that. There have been moments where I hadn't spoken to her in maybe like 2 weeks or so. And then I'll kind of say something, but I won't like push it or continue to reach out. Hey, what's going on with this? What's going on with that? Because number one, when we had the conversation, and because I use the process that I have, we already know the timeline. So I'm working backwards based on that. And my follow-up is going to be matching the timeline that we're looking to, not for me to try to get her to move and make a decision right now. Like, all of that pressure is unnecessary. The way that I've continued to build a solid relationship with her is by letting her do her job. Like, at one point she told me she was taking on another role because someone on the team had left, or maybe they went on leave or something to that effect. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna let her do her job. Like, her job is not to respond to me. Her job is not to award me a contract or an opportunity. Her job is way beyond that. And so let her focus on that. We're still on the timeline that we need to be on, and I'm still working opportunities in the interim. So have that mentality when you go into these opportunities, which why is important to, as you're doing the cold outreach or you're building those relationships, you need to do it at a certain scale so that you're not just putting all your eggs in one particular basket and waiting for those to crack. Put them all in different places and work a corporate pipeline, not just a contract here and there or different opportunities. Build yourself a pipeline of at least $100,000 worth of opportunities that can move at different parts throughout the year. And then build your follow-up system on that cadence in which these opportunities are meant to happen. Okay. This was good. I love all the engagement in the chat. I did not shout out everything because that would have took me off track, but I appreciate the questions and how you all are responding and thinking about getting into these opportunities, building those pipelines, and the different ways that you can do it. So we just talked about two, right? We talked about RFPs. We talked about opportunities that you can initiate. There are many different ways that you can get into organizations beyond those two, but those are the two main ways and two pathways that you can leverage. And so next steps, here's what you want to do with this information. I was going to say decide which one you want to do. I'm going to decide for you. You want to do both. So you want to be searching for opportunities that are structured, that are put out there, that are coming across your desk, and respond to those. But building those relationships is going to be paramount to actually having a healthy corporate contracts profit center inside of your business, which is what I'm all about. One contract here and there is great to say that you work with a company and have the logo, but in terms of the revenue, it's going to take relationships. Yes, you may have a conversation and have your first opportunity, right there because you were at the right place at the right time. But the real deal, the real salt in this is having these relationships where, yes, this person may be helping you get here, but then they have access to this department, or they have a colleague at this company and they've referred you here and there. I hear these stories countless times. And we just offboarded a client that is literally working this similar system where now she has a contact here, but she's just going to rinse and repeat this as she continues to deliver at a high level with other organizations over and over and over again. That's really how you want to get this business. So the cold outreach is important to do in the beginning to build that relationship. However, you want to get to a place where you don't even have to do that anymore, where you have that in your back pocket. You have a skill. If you want to be able to create some opportunities wherever you desire it, you can do that. But you have so many opportunities that are coming to you because of the relationships that you built. That is the salt. That's the juice. That's when you look at, you're doing your 2026 planning and you're like, all right, I know in Q3, we've got 3 corporate contract opportunities. We've got, 1 opportunity here. We've got this going. We've got that going. I know that last year we did this particular conference or this retreat. The same thing is going to come up for next year. So we already got that on the books. That's how you want to think about this. All righty. So I know that this was helpful. I see somebody joining us over on Instagram, and I see plenty of you all over on Facebook. Okay, got another question. Thanks, Yolanda. So yes, I love Apollo.io. I literally have it up right now for some outreach that I was doing myself. I love Apollo. I actually used Connected probably like 2 years ago. I do like that as well. The only thing about some of the AI tools, and I know we're seeing this everywhere, is we just want to make sure the human touch is not lost. I think that the important thing in this season to think about, I know everybody's talking about doom and gloom. I'm not talking about that over here, but what I am talking about is the power of connection. So if you're using these tools, not Apollo, because Apollo is more of like a research tool. If you're not familiar with it, it is a data mining tool. So if you're looking for emails, contact information, Apollo is used for that. Connected is a tool that actually plugs directly into LinkedIn, and you can create messaging campaigns to send out to your contacts. It can also request people for you. So it has some automation there. The reason that I'm saying the connection piece is because we don't want to get in a rut sending out automated things that just go over people's heads and get into their inbox. People are kind of desensitized to that. So how can we shake things up? I mentioned this earlier, but I actually made a cold call last week. And I was going to send an email, but in my mind, I'm like, I always send emails. I always reach out to people via email. Let me get back to my roots of what we used to do and make some real contact. And the person actually answered, and we had an amazing conversation. He was able to open me up to some other contacts, and he didn't know me from a can of paint. But that voice and that connection is something that a lot of people have strayed away from. So while those tools help, how can it help you create better connections? How can it help you be able to get the data quicker so that you can be able to make those connections quicker? That's the only thing that I will recommend with that, because people are over getting all of those canned emails and messages. And I have been a part of some of those campaigns. And a lot of times those tools can only get things correct as much as they can. I've gotten emails or messages from people, and it's clear that their campaign wasn't right or something was going on because the content of the email or the message didn't even relate to what I do. So if you're going to use the tools, like, let's use them right, or understand that you're going to have to do a lot more work, and you probably could miss some opportunities where there could be a relationship built because the tool is not perfect. So not to get on my soapbox on that, but keep it simple and build the relationships. It still works. It really does. And the more that you want to create that you create that personal connection, the more that you'll see opportunities move faster than just trying to hide behind emails, trying to hide behind AI and whatever else that we're using these days. All right. Awesome questions. Great engagement. I'm happy to see those who are able to join live. And if you are able to catch the replay, definitely drop in your takeaways. So as we wrap this up, as always, I want to make an invitation for those who feel like they want to get some support with this. So we walked through a whole lot Whole lot of systems, whole lot of processes and things that you can be doing. If you're saying, look, this is great, but I want to figure out exactly what I need to say, exactly how I can position myself with these organizations and the systems that I need to put in place so I can consistently be putting myself in front of those who actually make decisions, who have budgets, who need my services, who are actively looking for me, then that is what we do in my organization. We put together those plans and position you for these opportunities so that you don't just have the system, but that it's actually working for you, that it's bringing opportunities your way in ways that go beyond your existing network. So we talked a lot about cold outreach. We've developed a system that is able to create that connection that we talked about, that's able to create opportunities for you, that's able to structure your conversations in a way that not only unlocks the immediate low-hanging fruit opportunity, but allows you to build that longevity relationship that puts them into your corporate pipeline versus just a couple of dollars here and there, right? Not a couple, a lot of dollars, but still, we want to be able to build relationships that turn into 6-figure and 7-figure opportunities. And so that is the work that I would love to invite you to come and do with us. We do it in many different ways. So we're not even going to go into a specific offer, but what we can do is have a conversation where we can really dive into, what do you truly need at this time? What is the best fit for moving forward your opportunities? Is it that you need to know, hey, how do I position myself right now for what corporations are looking for? What is the system and process that I need to have? What is my unique angle that I need to be using with these organizations? How do I clean my LinkedIn up? How do I clean up my emails? Who do I need to be reaching out to right now to get these opportunities? And so I want to invite you to apply to work with me. And the link is in my bio. I'll also post it in the comments here, but basically it's kirstenjallen.com/WWK. And on that page, you'll be able to get some information more on how we serve people. You'll get to see some things from our clients and all the amazing things that'll help you be able to understand if we are the right people to serve you at this time. And once you do that, you and I will hop on a conversation to discuss where you are currently and where you want to be. So this is not a webinar or anything like that. It's you and I having a conversation to really look at where are the gaps and what needs to happen in order for you to have a solution. And at the end of that conversation, if there is a way that I can help you, a particular service or a particular program that would be a good fit for you, then I will make an offer for you there, and you'll get to decide how you would like to move forward, whether you want to take the information and put it into place yourself, or if you would like to work with us directly on making that happen, then I can discuss with you what that would look like. All right. So I would love to be able to speak with you and learn more about your journey and see which ways that I can support you deeper than what we've discussed today. And so just go on over to the link in the bio. Like I said, it'll be here as well, and schedule that time to chat. And then from there, we will see what we can do to support you. All right. So I will see y'all next time. This was a great topic. I appreciate everyone that was here live and joining and commenting in the chat. I see you over here on Instagram. I'll share that link with you so that you can book a time to talk. And I will see y'all next week. All right. Go and position yourself for these opportunities. That's my last takeaway for you. Don't sit on this. Go do it. Have conversations. Build your opportunities. Look for RFPs. Respond to them. Do what the work is super simple, but these opportunities can literally change your business just like that. So I will talk to y'all soon. Have a good one.